Hey everybody, welcome back to our third installment of Onion Skins. Music courtesy of Ty Wilson, who we heard from last episode. If you haven't listened to that one, highly recommend it. We had a really great talk about writing. And I have a prediction that we're probably going to be talking about that again today with this week's guest, Issa Hanssen, BFA.3 from CalArts Character Animation. Big round of applause for Issa. Yay!
Hello.
Hello. I guess I didn't ask you how you wanted to be introduced.
No, that's fine. I mean, I'm technically not a student, but that's fine.
Issa, you left CalArts in the second semester of your third year. To do what exactly? What were you doing in that semester?
To be fair, I left school because money, obviously, but I left because I was accepted into the Cartoon Network Story Academy, which is a trainee program where they train people who maybe aren't quite at the right level, and they train them in specific stuff that they're looking for in story artists that they feel like maybe are missing from a lot of first-time people.
Awesome. That's super cool. It's something I think would be really cool to be a part of. I'm going to circle back to that at some point. I think we've started out the past couple episodes kind of talking about how you kind of came to be at CalArts, your journey. Issa, what was your journey like leading up into being at CalArts? You're the third episode, but you're the second person that we've had on that's from Maryland. Also, like me, we live 45 minutes away from each other when we're in the same
Maryland
state.
Crew.
Yeah. I was hoping that you could maybe tell me a little bit about how you came to like art. Hopefully you like art, about how you sort of ended up where you are now.
I'm from Maryland. My family lived there for the past, I want to say, decade, but before that we we lived in Japan and England because my dad is a teacher and he taught all over the place. But I'd kind of always been into art, and that was just kind of a thing I did. I'd also always been into writing, I realized recently. Like, I was writing like fake, I mean, I guess they were actual books, but they were 5-year-olds books for as long as I've been like drawing. So it was just kind of always my life. And my dad was an art teacher and also an English teacher and also a history teacher. So it was just like a big part of my life to be constantly like making things. And then, I went to high school, did a lot of fine art, thought I was going to be a fine art person, thought I was going to go to like Mica and just paint all the time. And then I realized I don't like painting. I liked storytelling. And that was the big thing. And I was like, oh, wait a second. Animation's a thing. That's a thing that's story driven. Oh, wait a second. And I had this like big realization like my junior year, which was really silly in retrospect because my dad's cousin works in animation. Like, I knew what it was. I knew what boards were. And I applied to CalArts and got rejected. And I was very sad about that. And I said, okay, you know what? Actually, I'm going to take a year and I'm just going to get good. And then they're going to have to accept me. So I took a year at community college, did a lot of writing, learned a lot about film, took a few film classes, and then reapplied. And then I got in, and I was excited mostly because I was able to prove that I could get it.
Yeah, a thing that we all sort of experience, the triumph of having gotten in, because there's nobody that we've talked to so far that's gotten in on their first try. Actually, you're the closest to that. Ty, I think it was 2 times for him, and then for me and Sanjana, it was 3 times.
I completely forgot to mention, I went to summer session in my year between high school and CalArts, and that's where I met Will for the first time.
Oh,
I always forget that I forgot about summer session entirely, even though that was a giant part of my existence.
Because I didn't even know that these things were available to people. Maybe I just didn't do enough research. I didn't look into summer session. I didn't look into CISA or anything like that.
I straight up didn't know like CISA existed. And then the only reason I found out about summer session is because my senior year, I didn't get into CalArts. My mom and I were doing research on like stuff I could do in the meantime. Like if I was going to be at community college, we were already saving a bunch of money by me not going to art school. So we're like, okay, what can we do in this meantime? And we found summer session. We were like, oh, I think like the deadline was in a week. So I scrambled to put a portfolio together or something. It was just like a nice introduction to the basics of what CalArts is. It was like CalArts Light, but it was spending a lot of time with Linda. Very basic Story 101 class that I think was a pretty good introduction. And that's where I kind of figured out I definitely wanted to do story and not like character design. Because originally I was like, character design, yes, drawing people. And then I realized I don't like to do turnarounds and that they drive me crazy.
Linda, the one that she's referring to, is Linda Dorn, our beloved life drawing teacher. How long is summer session? How long does that go for?
I want to say 6 weeks. It's on campus, so you get to live in Amundsen, which are the slightly nicer dorms. It's like a suite, so you have your own personal room that you like share a kitchen and a bathroom area with a bunch of people. So 6 weeks. It was great. It was also a great experience for me because I was like, wow, I'm living on my own, even though I'm not. That's crazy. I'm in California.
And that was the summer before you applied again?
That was like right after I got rejected.
Yeah, I don't think I would have had I sulked for a while after I didn't get accepted. I was beside myself because having been rejected on the second time rather was really tough. First time was all right, I guess. The second time was really tough, and I just went to a playground and hung out on a swing set for a while, thinking, what is my life going to even come to? But yeah, you were very productive.
A very indie movie.
It's a Ty Wilson flick.
Wow.
So you would think that was probably an experience that was pretty formative for your goals?
It made it seem possible. Like, doing that, I was like, oh, I can do this. I can go to CalArts. I can, like, move to LA and be okay. Between that and getting rejected, like, for me, that's motivation. I operate a lot on, not on spite, but a need to, like, prove myself in some form or fashion. It's like okay, time to get my life together. Gonna go do some stuff.
I think you kind of touched on something that's like really, I don't think I had a sense of how things in the animation world actually worked. I mean, you can only do so much research on the internet. And going back and looking at all those things, it feels like a lot of those things are pretty inaccurate as to what the pipeline is like, what you have to be like. And even thinking about what CalArts was kind of daunting, because I was like, even if I get in, like, it's going to be hellish to try and keep up and be on the same par. I'm definitely going to be lower tier. Like, that's how the terms in which I thought CalArts has been the complete opposite. I mean, it's still a lot of hard work, obviously. Everybody's been so great. And I think it's probably was really great for you to be able to experience Diet CalArts in summer session, which is really cool.
It was eye-opening in a couple ways. It was eye-opening about animation. It was eye-opening about, like, me being a human person who can function out in the world.
Nice. I think I kind of wanted to also talk about story, since that's sort of where this train of thought sort of leads us, because you, up until then,
Makes sense.
You thought you were going to do character design. I think a lot of people kind of come in thinking they're going to do that.
Just vague viz dev, character design, drawing nice images. I got here and immediately got tired of drawing nice images.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and people really find really quickly how much time they like to spend on things. I certainly did. I cap out at a certain point, and I'm like, that's how I know I'm not into viz dev. I can never spend like 6 hours drawing chairs or a single chair.
Oh god, no, yeah. Feature for me seems daunting, like the idea of boarding for so long. But that's probably just because I haven't done that at all.
I think that was also where my mind went. Like, TV seems like a fun place to be, because it's like you're working on the same thing, but you're working on different aspects or a different story. And the turnaround for stuff like that is quicker than in feature, for sure. Which I guess has its drawbacks. I guess that brings us to Cartoon Network thing. This was a really big deal when you got it. I thought it was really awesome. Everybody was really excited for you. Everybody's really excited for each other whenever stuff like that happens. This is the first year that they did it? Or is the second year or something?
This is the second year.
Yeah, so it's relatively new, and not a lot of us knew much about it. I still don't know exactly what all went on there, so I'm interested to hear what they had you doing on a daily basis, what your overall experience was like.
Absolutely. So, as I said before, it's like a program to fill in the gap between, like, we're a new storyboard artist coming in for the first time, what information they might be missing or what knowledge they might be missing. A lot of it, especially early on, I found was just like stuff that we might think of as the basics, but are just like super, super important that you absolutely need to know and need to remember. So stuff like the 180 rules, rule of thirds, how to use your camera in the best ways, clarity just as a concept and how important that is. It was a lot of these things that are just super, super important to keep in mind constantly, like not just to know them, but have them in your sequences all the time. And so what we did is we had different exercises where, like, pretty much every week that we would do, or like assignment, we'd work on it throughout the week. We'd have guest lectures, sometimes kind of pertained to what the assignment was about, and sometimes a cool person talking to us about what their part of the process of the pipeline was. But it was overall like really fantastic. And we had a lot of different assignments. Like we had a comedy assignment, action assignment, an assignment that was just about taking one character, like getting their character model and just having them go through a bunch of different emotions. So it was just about clear acting and interesting acting. Like not just what you'd expect like anger or joy to look like, but how to like make that unique and also clear. It was really cool to talk to people from different parts of the pipeline because we didn't just talk to story artists or directors or showrunners. We also talked to people in production or people who were designers, like doing prop design, character design, background layout. We talked to voice director and a voice actor. We talked to like post-production. We talked to development people. It was really cool. And I think it was really interesting and important to get the perspective from all over the pipeline because it makes you a more considerate and effective story artist. Personally, you're thinking about, oh, someone's gonna have to draw this background, someone's gonna have to like figure out how to do this like crazy camera move eventually, make like a model sheet for this. I think it's important to consider animation is like such a team effort. You need to be able to think about who's gonna get their hands on this next and how can I make their job easier just to make this whole process work better.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. It's definitely something that like a lot of story artists complain about, especially ones that don't write or they work on script-driven shows where the writer is always writing things like, and then the guy gets into his jet plane and then dives over the crowd. You know, it's like all these elaborate things that are miserable for story artists to have to write.
So many scripts or outlines will just have like they fight and you're like, okay, what am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah, it's so vague. I think it's really great that you were able to have that experience, and it definitely makes the experience of working on a show probably better, having all those things into consideration for each of the different departments. So I think that's really good. So you think it was overall a really great experience, and that's really awesome.
Yeah.
And unfortunately it was cut short, right?
No, actually. We actually got an extra week, which was great. Yeah, I mean, we had to move to work from home, obviously, like the rest of the entire animation industry. But we were able to kind of keep working. We finished out our final projects. Actually, yeah, my last day was Friday. So we just finished. It was a good experience.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys were able to do that. I know that they were cutting a lot of other things short, you were saying, right? Like the internships and...
Yeah, they cut the internships short. Way back when we all got kicked out of the offices, they were just like, yep, internship's over, guys.
What is the distinction between what you did and the internship?
We're like entirely boarding and story focused. I mean, obviously we learned about other stuff, but we are being trained to be story artists. The internships, they're very different in that you're an intern, you're helping out with a variety of tasks on a day-to-day basis. It kind of depends on the production. Be like printing stuff or copying stuff or like shadowing someone maybe. It kind of depends on the production and how active a production is. But all the while they're kind of just like helping out around or like learning stuff, they're also working on a pitch. And the main project of the internships is that they're developing a kind of pitch Bible that they will present at the end of the internship to a very large number of people or whoever shows up. They like put up posters and invite people. And they have a big presentation where they're able to like show their work.
Gotcha. Obviously, one of the things that is on people's minds is attaining that workshop or program that you were part of. And part of that is that you're a very good writer. You're very invested in that. First of all, what kind of stuff went into that portfolio? And did you focus it a lot on writing, or was it just a lot on the kind of boards that you were doing? Or
Oh, Lord, my portfolio. So my portfolio site, it kind of has like a good variety. I think it's half assignments I did, which were like scripts that were given to us for Story 2 class. Other half of it is stuff that I did at a mad scramble for portfolio day. That's one of my current portfolio pieces is based off a script I wrote for screenwriting, and the other one was just like an action sequence that I thought would look cool. Or I really like writing, and there was a while where I had a writing section in my portfolio that I'm going to try to bring back at some point when I have stuff I like. But definitely my one sequence in my portfolio that is like something that I wrote. I put a lot of effort into trying to figure out how well the two can work together.
Circling back to, I guess, the kind of stuff that you write, you have a really great and specific way of writing that reads really well and is really recognizable to the people who know you, including myself. We worked together on a publication called The Sublevel, which there's not any drawing in it. There's very little drawing in it. It's all of us who really just enjoy writing and writing fun stuff. And you do the horoscopes for that. Very, very you. Like, your tone in there is dark, but really funny, and a lot of times very sarcastic. You're a very sarcastic person, and I don't think people that reads right now.
Am I, Peter? Am I
Yeah.
sarcastic?
Okay. All right. I see what you're doing. We had screenwriting together. All the people that we've interviewed so far have been in Nicole Panter's screenwriting class. But we
Yeah.
had screenwriting together my first
You're in the
semester
same
this year.
room.
Yeah, so I got the
Yeah.
pleasure of hearing a lot of the cool stuff that you were writing, and it was all very like melancholic, funny, at other times spiritual. Like you delve a lot into myth. I was hoping that you could, I guess, talk to us about sort of your writing process. Like, where do you start when you are asked to write a piece for Nicole's class, or when you just have the desire to write?
For Nicole's class this year, the scripts that I read were specifically going to be my third year of films, which I was going to attempt to make 3. And then I dropped out, so those aren't getting made probably. Just in general, I try to hone in on a specific feeling or internal conflict that I might personally have and am not super capable of verbalizing in a clear, coherent way. So I kind of build out characters from those feelings, and I'm like, okay, you get to be this side of this, and you get to be this side of this. Now fight. Or not actually fight. I don't think they're all conversation based, kind of the interactions between two people. And then I love mythology and folklore, and this idea of these traditions that you have in stories that are, I don't want to say universal, but just so relatable to people that they become well known. That's so interesting to me, and like why people pass down certain stories. So I try to have some kind of element of something strange or mythological. Yeah, I like how it can be a metaphor for something that two people talking can't fully express.
Yeah, there's this quote I remember reading. I forget who it is. I think it was Richard Rohr maybe who said it, but he said something to the effect of, "This is the greatest myth that never happened, but it's truer than the truest thing," or something along those lines. I might be terribly misquoting him, but the idea is still the same, that there's something about myth in the ancient world that is so compelling to people, and that nobody sort of had this idea that this was real, but they understood that the lessons being taught through it were real. And so
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm very drawn to this kind of stuff that you're writing, is because
thanks.
it does reach sort of back into those roots where you feel like there's something big and mystical happening, but also at the same time happening sort of within the small frame of a short film. Your last year's film, I talked about that earlier. You made 2 of them actually, that sort of play
Yeah.
side by side, and they have the same sort of structure, but they feel much like a folk tale or like a. I'll let you sort of explain.
My second year films is the story of a rabbit and a coyote. The rabbit, essentially, she likes hearing stories, so she digs all the way down through the earth and tries to hear all the stories that different creatures can tell until she reaches the bottom where she can only talk to like the dead, I guess. And then she's like, wait a second, I don't have a story. And then it kind of leaves off there. And then the second part is about a coyote who wanted to reach the stars and just keeps chasing that and enlists the help of friends and family and is so close. And then right when he's about to like reach the stars, he jumps and misses. That's kind of a very short summary of that. And they were both how I was feeling as an artist at that point, and also a person who I thought I was dropping out then. Kind of been scared of dropping out for the past entire time at Cal Arts. So I was super sure I was gonna drop out. So I made these 2 films that kind of encapsulate all my feelings on art making. And the reason I made these, aside from all my emotions, was I'd been working on a film that whole year that was very different and about like changing friendships. And then my grandmother died and I had to go back to Maryland for spring break. And I kind of just hit a block with that film. It wasn't even related to her. It was just I hit a block with it. And on the plane ride back to Maryland, I wrote these 2 little short fables about this rabbit and coyote. I made those films in like 2 weeks, which I don't recommend doing, but I did it. And I seemed to function well in kind of that last minute do or die situation.
Our films got screened together. Yours, mine, and Jess at a really great animation festival here in Maryland that just started up called Sweaty Eyeballs.
Wait, I don't think mine was in Sweaty Eyeballs,
yours
was it?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm sorry. I
No.
misunderstood. I thought yours got... I'm sorry. But yeah, anyways, really great stories. And you maintain a lot of that mysticism and through all the other stuff that you've written, including the stuff you were going to make for this third year.
Yeah.
Then you got this awesome opportunity with Cartoon Network, like we talked about, and then you sort of dropped out. What has your experience been, I guess? I guess you haven't had much beyond taking that leap, because it's something that a lot of us are thinking about doing, or definitely going to do, or at some point will do. because
Yeah.
CalArts is just so dang expensive. Or either that or they
It,
find some cool job. Is that something that you have any sort of insight on as far as just dropping out?
I was really scared about dropping out. I was like so scared. I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to do anything. I'm just going to be this art school dropout. And I felt like I got really lucky when I got the email for Cartoon Network. Like I was so excited. I threw my phone. I was in like the labs, scared. Ty, who I think was sitting next to me. So I was super scared to drop out, and I feel like it's hard for me to talk about. I guess I had something, but in the time where I like was about to fill out paperwork and I didn't have something, I was terrified. And I think it's okay to be scared about that. I think it's fair to be scared about dropping out because it feels so unsure, and it make you feel like so unstable, and like it's hard to imagine something good happening. Man, like everyone I know is so talented. It's hard for me to imagine people not getting work. It's hard for me to imagine my friends and classmates who I know are planning on dropping out. It's so hard for me to imagine them not getting work because I've seen their work, and I've seen like what people in studios do. Like I because I was in house for Cartoon Network, we got to see a lot of boards, we got to see a lot of pitches, and I have no doubt that they can do that. It's hard to take that reassurance, I guess. I don't want to say just like trust it. I'd say do the work that you need to do some sequences that you're proud of, do work that you want to do, I guess is a big thing. Do like make work and put in your portfolio the kind of work that you like to do and that you would want to get hired for. Don't like make a comedy sequence that is completely not your sense of humor just to have it, because then you're going to end up with maybe a job that you don't really vibe with, and it's just going to be harder. I think animation it's doable. You can do it. It's attainable.
It's a thought that creeps in everybody's mind. Like, after I graduate, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
But it's like the hardest part feels like it's sort of not behind us. Obviously, there's a lot of hardship to come, but like I feel like the act of coming to this school or like trying really hard. I'm not trying to like, I guess, brag too hard on Cal or like brag too much on it, but like, it does take a lot of energy, and it does take a lot of time and commitment to do that kind of stuff. So it's surprising to me when I see people who come here, because I don't know, I think maybe everybody's sort of disillusioned thinking that they're going to get a job just because they came to CalArts. But I mean, most of the time it's true, not because they came to CalArts, but because they had the willpower to even apply 3 times or work really hard on their portfolio in the span of however much time they had to get there. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of hard work, and I don't believe that those people are gonna flounder. I haven't heard of anybody any of our friends that I think are gonna flounder. I don't believe it. So I guess during your time here at CalArts, when you were here, you were the president of the Games Club. Game Makers Club? Am I correct in saying that?
I was one of the co-execs. I feel like that's not the correct word. I don't remember what the correct term we were using is now. But yes, I was one of the 3 people in charge of it. And before that, I was on teams. I had worked as both a CG artist, a concept artist, and a moderator, kind of director. Not technically the term, but kind of felt like a little bit of a leadership position before I was in an actual leadership position.
And so I guess for people who are unfamiliar, like what is sort of the process for that? Is there a timeline? Like what is the end goal of the club by the end of the semester or by the end of the year?
So every semester, everyone in the club is split up into teams, and that's kind of based on like what your role will be. So we balance out all the teams. So it's a very like inter-school club. Like we have musicians and actors and graphic designers and character animators and experimental animators and people from like all over the school, which is like pretty rare at CalArts. And we all get together, and everyone's split up into teams, and then each team makes a game. Essentially, you have a semester to put together something, and every week you come in and you show what you have. You spend time like pitching your game concept to the club as a whole. As the semester goes on, you work on your game, and the moderators, the people in charge, who I'm just saying people in charge. This past fall, it was me, and then also Marley Townsend and Roy Berardo, who are a filmmaker and musician respectively. They're both great. I love them. So yeah, it's a place where you can work with other people, other artists, and make games. And I had a lot of fun with it. It's definitely a huge time commitment. Like I when I tell people about it, I'm like, it's kind of like another class, maybe like kind of a minor almost, because it's a lot of work. You're making a game. It's like making a film kind of, but interactive, and also a team. So it's not as grueling as making a film. I really enjoyed the experience. It's cool to see what kind of really experimental and interesting and unique games people will make when given that space to make them. I worked on 4 games. Yeah, I worked on 4 games. I worked on Art Thief, which was a point and click that was moderated / directed by Green, actually. Green Olsen, our freshman year. I worked on that. I worked on Rollerball Island. I pitched the idea and then moderated Starlight, and then moderated for Iris. Starlight was like a walking sim, and Iris was a platformer. In Starlight, actually, we got invited to DreamHack Anaheim, which is this esports convention in Anaheim that happened this past February. And we got to table and have a little table in the indie games section, present our game, and sit there and talk to indie developers. And that was actually really cool. That was crazy. Because that was actually a competition, and we just straight up got invited. They're like, we like your game. And I was like, oh my God, how did you find out about it?
I think that's really awesome. I think like my favorite things that people here do are, apart from obviously like the animation and all that boring stuff.
Yeah.
But I love it when like the character animation students or any students do things that are adjacent to sort of their interests, but feel separate in some ways. Like I really enjoy seeing Jess's pottery. I really enjoy seeing like Adele, the Go Blonde exchange student. He does like these paper cutout things, and I think those are so cool. Obviously not drawing or anything like that, but it's still, it's part of the artistic process. And I think it was really cool for me to be able to see all of the stuff that you guys have been working on at the Interactive Media Day, or I don't remember what it was called. Yeah, you'll have to remind me, but it was in the spring.
Yeah, what is that called? There's a word for it. I want to say, well, I know it's the Expo. I feel like they might have renamed it. I think maybe it's just the Digital Arts Expo.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called. Yeah, and that was fun because we had our table set up last year, and we had like, as a club, I think we made like 12 games, which is like a ridiculous amount. Like studios don't even make that much in a year. And granted, they're student games, so they're all small and short, but like that's still crazy. Like there's actual game programs where you like actually learn how to make games. There's actual schools that like you don't see that many being made. Not to brag about Cal Arts Game Makers Club, but I think it's a really special group, and I think it's so cool that it's like entirely student run. We have like one faculty advisor, and he's fantastic and great at helping, but he also like very much gave us the freedom to kind of run it.
Yeah, it's really great to see like I guess how really your love of games has like sort of inspired that in other people. It feels like a really great space to be in. I wish I was able to have been a part of that. I guess I didn't have any confidence in my own abilities, but obviously you have a very sort of storied history with games. I mean, you worked at TikTok Games, right?
Yes.
You did the internship twice, right?
I interned for them for 2 summers. They were great. I did so many paintings that I'm probably not qualified to do, but it was great. I did so much viz dev. I'm not a viz dev artist, but it was still a good experience.
Is that what they had you doing most of the time? Were you mostly painting when you were there, or?
I'm not like just painting, but just doing a lot of viz dev and concept stuff, which I mean was super fun. It was great to like kind of stretch that muscle. But yeah, I got that internship. I think partly because I was in Game Club and I had a bunch of stuff from Game Club in my portfolio freshman year. And I was like, yeah, I'm working on a game. And they're like, oh my God, people make games here now. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I worked with them for 2 summers. Had a great time. They were super nice. Games are cool.
having that sort of understanding of your background and seeing how much like games are a part of your existence. I mean, I every time that we are on Discord together, I feel like you are. I always hop in and you're talking about turnip prices for Animal Crossing or.
Yeah. I've been playing like games as a whole since I was like probably too young to be playing games, because both my parents played games and have been playing since they were kids. Like they both had like old Nintendo 64s. I remember being like 7 and they both played World of Warcraft. And then also I played World of Warcraft. It's really funny when you give that game to a 7-year-old, because they don't like know any of like what is expected of a video game. They're just a 7-year-old running around as like a night elf, like trying not to get killed by wolves, but then also like I just tried to save up enough silver to buy a cat. That was my main goal. I don't know, I think games are really interesting as a method of storytelling. I think like the interactive aspect is so interesting, and you can get so many different people will handle different problems in unique ways. And I think that's really cool and a really like interesting way to put people in a specific headspace for a story. I don't know. I like to think a lot about how different mediums, I guess, can serve a story. Because I love video games. I think there are certain stories that are like, or at least for me, that I want to tell that are better suited to games, and then some that are better suited to animation, and some that are like even better suited to comics. I don't know. It's really neat what you can do with like the strengths of these different mediums.
Yeah, you brought up comics. That's definitely something that you produce a fair amount of, more than I think most people at CalVets who do comics. I think that they're always really beautiful. They're always very, almost sometimes poetic. Like even like you did an Animal Crossing. Like I don't even play Animal Crossing, Issa, but y'all had me feeling on that one. It was great. It was an Animal Crossing sort of background like fanfic, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was really
I can
awesome.
explain that if you want me to.
Yeah, you know what? There are going to be people who are know Animal Crossing more than I do. So I think I'm insulting some people. But yeah, go ahead, Issa. I'll let you explain.
It's okay. Yeah, I did that right after I wrapped on work this past week. Like I finished work and I was like, what do I want to do? And I like went manic and made a 15-page like comic in a day. I don't know how that happened, but it's most of the dialogue for that is actually from the games. It's from an older game called Animal Crossing Wild World, which is for the Nintendo DS. And in that game, if you talk to this one character enough, like over time, because Animal Crossing is like, it's a real time based game. If you talk to her over the course of like a year, you can unlock all these different bits of conversation where she talks about her backstory with this other character, Tom Nook. And I always loved like uncovering that when I was playing that when I was a kid. And like all these new people are into Animal Crossing, and I'm like super excited about it, but I'm like, y'all don't know. You need to know the tragic backstories, because that was like something that that blew my mind as a kid, like the slow unlocking of like this information. So I kind of like took a bunch of bits of dialogue from that and kind of pieced it together, and that's what the comic is. Yeah, Animal Crossing.
Yeah, but I mean, all that to say that like it's so beautifully done. I mean, like it's so like sweet and heartfelt. Like you do a lot of dreaming stuff too, which has that same sort of feeling. Maybe a little bit more melancholic than that particular comic, but like I always think that's really cool too. Dreams are something that I think we kind of bonded over or like talk about sometimes. Like I'm a really into dreams. Like I think they're really cool, and like I don't think there's always a one-to-one that it means something in your life, but I always find it is really great fodder for stories, and really, I don't know, just really revealing parts about your, I guess, personality sometimes, or things that you maybe feel deep down. I don't know. What is your sort of approach to dreams when it comes to, especially when it comes to storytelling?
Yeah, I like dream pretty vividly. And I've dreamed pretty vividly for like a really, really long time. Like I still remember this one dream I had in middle school that was just like punched to the gut for some reason. So I dream super vividly, and it's always been really interesting to me to like kind of like parse through that and be like, okay, I know that dreams are just like your brain spitting back information at you. Like it's stuff that your brain takes in throughout the day, and it's your brain's way of like processing that. What that means is not usually a one-to-one, like, oh, this means that you're stressed about something that's happening soon. I mean, granted, if teeth are falling out in your dream, yeah, that usually just means you're stressed. But if you're like trapped in a crumbling ancient civilization where everyone's pretending it's fine, that's probably like something more than just you're stressed. I don't know. I took Psych 101 and I was like, ooh, dreams. Then I kind of like, from then on, I kind of like take a little bit of time to think about my dreams after I have like an especially vivid one. And especially if there's like reoccurring motifs. Like I have a reoccurring dream where I'll like talk to an old friend that I haven't spoken to in years. And then I wake up and I'm like, and like I'll feel relief when I'll talk to them because I'll be like able to apologize for old things or like say things I wish I could. And then I'll wake up and it's like, all right, that was a dream. Cool, thanks. I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of an extension for me of like the idea of reflection and kind of like being introspective. Not like like being able to think about why you are reacting to things in certain ways or why you're thinking about things a lot or like why certain things make you feel certain ways. And I don't know, dreams for me have always just been like a cool avenue to think through that, and also just like aesthetically you can make them look cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's some fun stuff you can do there.
Yeah, I noticed that like a lot of writers tend to write down their dreams. Like I definitely write mine down. I don't share them with many people because a lot of times they're really boring or they're things I don't want to share. I don't want to share with people. But yeah, I've definitely found that's sort of like a really cool avenue to try to explore to, I don't know, get yourself out of reality and more into the intuitive side of storytelling. I don't know, because I feel like sometimes I find myself very grounded in reality. Like I'm writing a story and I'm like, well, this would never happen in real life. But then I'm sort of bound by that. But sort of having that reference of like, well, I felt this way in a dream for some reason. Like sometimes I'll wake up sobbing because like my mom turned into a tree or something. And there's no reason for that. But like there's still that emotion attached to it. And I think it's like an interesting thing to try to explore. Like, I don't know, the reason for those things or like the, I don't know, like what sort of emotion that's unlocking. And I feel like dreams sort of have this access to very specific emotions that you don't feel in your waking life. Like, I don't even know how, it's like the feeling, sometimes I'll wake up with the feeling like your favorite show just ended. You know what I mean? Like it ends on such a good, like it's the feeling I had like when I finished Breaking Bad or something, like, and at the end I'm like, wow, there's this hole in me. Like these people aren't real, but they meant something to me into like on some level. And that sort of reinvigorates my love for storytelling. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I don't know, just by like the nature of dreams, like just giving you back what you already have and the emotions that you have in different ways. I don't know if that made sense, but I think it's important to be able to think about not what your dreams mean in a literal sense, but like why feelings are the way they are. Hard to articulate, I guess. Yeah.
This kind of is a detour question. I wanted to talk about it at some point because you are pretty vocal. I feel like sort of cultural and sexual representation in story or in the animation industry. That's not something we've talked at length. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little out of my water, but I would really like to sort of hear sort of your take on that and the sort of thoughts that you've been stewing around on when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for context, I'm mixed. I'm mixed, half Filipino, then Mexican and white. For the rest of that half, it's like a quarter kind of. Genetics are weird, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's super important because I think I personally just like when people tell stories that are true to themselves, that are authentic to themselves. And I think people, for me at least, like cultural background is like a lot of the kind of stories that we like to tell, a lot of like what we connect with just in life in general because of how we grew up or who we are or what we've experienced in our lives. I think obviously representation is super important, but I think it's more than just that. It's also like people being able to tell their own stories. In animation, like a bunch of like leads of color, but it's also like it'd be cool if there were more people like off screen, like in productions, who also share that history with that character, because I think you just get better stories when that happens. I think it's important in like a social sense in terms of like just people who deserve these jobs who have been barred from it because of reasons. But I also just genuinely think it just makes stories better. It just makes the industry better. It makes the kind of things that we were able to make better. People's unique perspective, I always find, is far more interesting than something made to be like general. And for me, at least, that's something that I try to like. It's not like probably super apparent in my work or overt all the time. My love of myths and folk tales comes a lot from like my dad, who was also super into that. Like he'd tell me like fairy tales and folk tales from all over the place. He'd tell me like Mexican folklore, but then also like, you know, the various European folklore he grew up with, because he, you know, grew up in Virginia, and that's kind of what you learn, I guess. And then also I grew up, like my early childhood was both in Japan and then England. Both also have this very like strong folktale. Well, I mean, everywhere has folktales. What am I saying? Every culture on the planet has like folktales, but I feel like I just grew up with kind of a varied amount of mythology to draw from. And so like when I myself am creating mythology, I try to like think about that, and not just from one angle, but from like what does this mean to me? And I think when more people are thinking about storytelling from that, like what is this experience, what is my specific take on it, I think it's more interesting.
There's something really special about recognizing that every culture has stories that are so similar in structure and I guess feeling. I guess they have all sort of cultures have sort of a similar stories, but that are unique and far more powerful because of the context in which they're told, which I think is really remarkable. And I think it's why I'm also really attracted to your work. I think it's really speaks to that. And I think you're totally right talking about sort of how the people who actually live in those cultures or have a deep understanding of those things are able to tell much better stories. I couldn't agree with you more. I think we're just about out of time, but I'm gonna kind of throw you here on the spot for a second.
Okay.
But we just started asking last episode about what you're watching or what your favorite movie is, or you know, whatever sort of film or piece of media that you really want to plug. I mean, I know you're a gamer, so you can plug a game or whatever you want to plug, but something that really speaks to you or has spoken to you recently or impacted you profoundly that you think people should know about.
Yeah, sure. I watched Portrait of a Lady on Fire recently. That was fantastic. I don't know, I could probably think about something like, I guess, more specific to me. God, that's such a hard question.
It's not meant to entrap you or anything. I just I just know that there are sometimes people watch things that are like maybe is impacting their week or the way that they are trying to do their next project, or something that you've seen that's like, oh, that's something that I'm really into. I like, for instance, I watched There Will Be Blood for the first time only like a couple weeks ago. And that film I've watched 3 times now, and that is still living in my mind because I loved it so much on so many levels. Mm-hmm. So go watch There Will Be Blood. But that's my plug for this week, I guess.
Okay. Wait, I got something. Yeah, so obviously I just said I watched Portrait of a Lady on Fire recently. Loved that. Loved the yearning. Loved the cinematography. Loved the mythological tie-ins to the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. Also recently, just last night, watched the half of it with my roommates, which is out on Netflix now, from director Alice Wu, who is a Chinese lesbian director, and the half of it was very enjoyable. It's one of those high school dramedies types, but it features Asian lead. Her name is Ellie Chu, and she is gay. She's gay and helps this kid write a letter to his crush. But then drama happens, and oh no, maybe she has a crush on his crush. Anyway, it's probably one of my more favorite of the high school dramedy type of movie as of late. I've seen a lot of those. They're not usually good. But this one was good. Watched it with my roommates. We had a good time. Also has some great yearning and cinematography and I want to say mythological tie-ins, but it's not nearly as prevalent as Portrait.
Well,
those are my
awesome.
plugs.
Yeah, everybody go watch the half of it, Alice Wu, on Netflix, if you're in the mood for a yearning piece. Thank you so much, Issa, for coming on this week. It really means a lot to us. It was really fun getting to talk to you and ask you all the questions that would probably annoy you if I asked just on a regular night. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. Great to talk to you guys. Love answering questions about myself.
We're gonna go ahead and put, I guess, Issa's Instagram handle or whatever she wants to plug. She'll tell us after the show. In the description of this video. But I guess until then, we'll talk to you guys next week or 2 weeks from now. I don't know how often we're doing these, but see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.